Warning: this video contains spoilers from events that took place within the first issue of Algatras. If you haven't read it already, then do yourself a favor, pause this video and come back after you finish it. I've put a loading screen. Here you have a few seconds. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Alrav from Quebec, Canada, the author and creator of Algatras the Protector / Algatras the Protector. And for today's video, as part 3 of the making of series of Algatras number 1, I'll be focusing on the breakdown of key characters and settings that were used in the making of the first issue itself. The breakdown process itself is optional, but it is usually done to acquire reference materials to be used when making a comic book in general. So if you are taking on a long-running series, it helps to have documentation. But if you're making something brand new from scratch, you'll want to have as much as possible to be able to keep the story going. So these various shots are based on the Mega Nest Island setting that I wanted initially to create my own artificial cities of sorts from scratch, but after messing around with it, I felt more and more like real-world settings and locations are much more practical to do from an artist standpoint, since you don't have to recreate everything from scratch. You can simply take what you want and you can work from there. So that's the reason why this Mega Nest setting eventually ended up being a one-off thing that would be destroyed within the event of the first issue. So I did make several pages of documentation to give you an idea as to what this island will look like. A lot of it didn't make it into the first issue itself, but it was a fun experiment to do. So if you want to create a whole city from scratch, you're always free to do it. There are no rules in this favor. If you have the imagination and the means to carry it all the way through, you can do it, and I recommend you. If not, you do have the option to using real world setting and locations, which I prefer personally, but there you go. So I've made the Mega Nest Island itself, but one stock setting that I had to create from scratch as well was Project Protector HQ. And I don't get to showcase a lot of the facility, but I had to be ready to be able to show it as many times as possible, with not only within the first issue, but also all the subsequent albums themselves. So that's why I made these preparations. Each of the main pieces of Project Protector HQ itself, the facility, the locales, are based around different characters. So for instance, these areas here were built for Tessa in mind, while these areas were built for Vicky. So there are for instance, our mechanical workshop that's seen here briefly in the first issue. There are other areas of the base tag design but did not use. There is a possibility that I will eventually make stories that will include these locations in the future. So in a sense, preparing all this material wasn't for nothing. If anything, it only made it easier for the first issue because I can reuse these reference shots as many times as I want. That said, that doesn't mean all of them will make it. There is actually a history behind why I made a lot more material than I actually use in even most of the albums that I planned myself. I will eventually cover it in a later installment of the Making of Algatras series. So here's our This particular area was intended to be used in one of the cut deleted scenes materials that use Deagle and Viki as the basis. This one eventually made it into a different form as a video call. It is available as part of the Substack referential program for the first of the bonus materials. So here's a look at the secretary entrance outpost for Yomoko-chan, as well as her overture of sort, which I did not include in the first issue, but it will be shown in the later issues as well. So you can see this one very briefly in the end. This one is interesting, but it is not included. So here's a glimpse for the launching site and platforms for Megalodon. So one of them was shown very briefly in the first issue itself. It is based on an arcade arena of sort, so that's why I included it. And this one shot here does appear very briefly in the first issue. It appears as soon as Algatras and Tessa make their way back to HQ. And here's a potential layout of the facility itself. Again, I'll be covering this one in more details in a later installment of the making of series. So the following breakdown shots here are intended for the main antagonist in the form of the Bio-Goliath that I used in the first issue, as well as the secondary villains that did make their way in, such as General Thunder and the leader of the Sons of the Ultimate. Again, both of these villains were seen very briefly before they were killed off. So some of these shots here were intended as reference for the hostage situation scenes. So I've designed guns and everything. Most of it did not make it. This particular key area and facility here, as well as the rooftop area, did got used in the end. As well here another shot of the reptilian hostage that Algatras carried to the rooftops. And here are more facilities and vehicles that are tied to set pieces that took place in the later part of the first issue itself. So this shot was seen very briefly. It is the outside of the Zextron lair in which Algatras infiltrate, and this was intended to be used for the confrontation with General Thunder. The finished version simplified the design, so it only showcased Algatras being surrounded by Zextron minions before the confrontation. So here's another look at General Thunder. Him being a giant floating head, the reason for that is that will make a lot of sense. The initial inspiration behind the story of the first issue itself was largely in response to the Hong Kong 97 review from the Angry Video Game Nerd. So General Thunder being a giant floating head was part of the joke aspect of the first issue. So that's why he was never given a real proper body. Again here, more vehicles and references, this time for the big chase involving the Bio-Goliath that took place in the later half of the first issue. And a glimpse of the island seen from a distance, as well as another look at the Bio-Goliath here of Gasfuinarko Sakagoki. Again, some of the designs that I sketched out for her were intended to be a lot more monster-like than the finished version, but because of the long delays, and that I really had to finish that first issue. I simplified it into later versions, so the finished product was more like a classic monster looking character. And here are some of the last references for Meganist Island before everything gets destroyed in the aftermath of the chase itself. And the last page here, I will not show it directly to you. Suffice to say that it is a first look at the mysterious femme fatale cyborg that was shown very briefly in the first issue. So this character will eventually come back in the series at some point, so that's why I designed her in advance. And that's it for today's video, folks. Let me know what you think in the commentary section below. As always, look forward to all the Algatras the Protector / Algatras le Protector stuff on my Substack. The links are always available in the links in the description below or on my channel's page. With that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see one another very soon. Enjoy the reading.